Bridget Jones, has there ever been such a lovable character? And I loved her so, so much. In fact, I was kind of living her life without so much of the screw up, of course, or so I like to think. And so today's book is Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. Bridget is a 30-something singleton, and that word totally encapsulates everything about her life and kind of mine as well. Bridget has a core group of friends where they get together and have these very drunken counselling sessions over the latest round of male fuckwittery. The deep and meaningful conversations get more intense and more passionate as more bottles of wine are consumed. The constant well-meaning family friends who said, "Bridget, when are you going to have a boyfriend?" And then of course the smug marrieds who are saying, "When are you going to get sprogged up?" Of course it's enough to send anyone to drink. And drink Bridget did. And Bridget also has very bad luck with men. Her bad boy boss, Daniel Cleaver, who really just wants to shag her whenever it works for him and not at all interested in any kind of commitment. And the ever elusive Mark Darcy that her mother keeps pushing her onto. This book came out in the mid-90s when I was exactly the same age as Bridget and having the same kind of lifestyle. Less kind of by choice, but more by default, really. So it's kind of not surprising that I identified with it. Now, Bridget's diary entries start with the weight, calorie count, alcohol units consumed, the amount of cigarettes consumed. The thing that stood out was the complete and utter obsession with weight. Now, those of us who remember being in our 20s and 30s in the 90s do know how much this decade fucked with us when it came to our body image. And a lot of that's got to do with these supermodels who were prolific at that time. These women who were like 6'5" and who weighed 2.5 stone. Whereas Bridget was like 5'3" and weighed 9 stone 3, which translates to 130 pounds, which is kind of just under 59 kilos, which is not large. It's incredibly small, actually, because society had warped the very thoughts we had about ourselves back then. Bridget thought she was fat, and I probably did as well, and neither of us were fat. But we were convinced we were because of all this stupid psychological crap that was going on in the media. And don't get me started on that BMI thingy, that stupid device that was created based on a male physiology and not a woman's physiology at all. We were being set up to fail. You know, the writers who say she's 5'10" and weighs 100 pounds. That woman is a rake. I mean, seriously, they've got to stop doing this. Bridget's observations were often acerbic and very on point, and they reflect a lot of what I was going through at the time. I mean, her situations were often way more exaggerated than mine. I mean, I never had to go to a family New Year's curry buffet, as she says. I can't do the English accent. Apologies for butchering that one. Where it's a post-New Year's Day party where they're eating up all the leftover Christmas food and the intense scrutiny. Are you going to get married? When are you going to have a baby? And oh, look, this newly eligible bachelor we want you to meet. Go on, say hello. Really? Had a smidgen of that, but Bridget, full on, constant, and it would have been really mortifying and really annoying. But I did have those well-intentioned husbands of my girlfriends going, "Why are you still single? You're a catch. What's wrong with you?" Well, thanks. That kind of statement didn't help at all. And then when I was 25, my mum very publicly going, "When am I going to have a grandchild?" It's like, oh, and I was dying inside. I mean, I was 25. I was still young. I was living in London. I was having fun. There was no way I was even thinking about motherhood. And in fact, I had thought about it the year before, but only in the, oh my God, same age my mother was when she had me. And I'm way too young. So this was clearly not going to happen at 25. One of Bridget's friends, Sharon, who is the original inventor of the emotional fuckwittage statement, says some rather prophetic things. She's talking about how dating in your 30s and the 90s is great, but in 20 years' time, these guys better watch out because women just aren't going to put up with this shit anymore. The author was incredibly prophetic. She was a little bit out with her time scale. I like to think more 30 years' time, especially as I'm seeing a lot of women now actively choosing to leave their husbands, and they're saying enough. And frankly, if I was married to their husbands, I don't think I'd have lasted as long as they have. So these women are leaving their husbands and enjoying a new renaissance of singledom. Bridget is constantly at these dinner parties where there's this morbid fascination with her dating life. And in the 90s, I had a very active dinner party life. There was a large group of us friends, and we would have lots and lots of dinner parties. And then I started noticing that things would start changing. My friends all started getting coupled up and married. Those dinner parties started reducing substantially in numbers, and I ended up getting invited to family dinner instead. And about 15 years ago, I went to a 40th birthday party. I shared a cab home with one of the guys who had been part of the same dinner party group, who was also perpetually single. And he was saying, did you realise that we were the only single people there? And I'm like, oh my God, no, I hadn't. Usually I have a really finely tuned radar for this thing, but I kind of hadn't been paying attention. He goes quiet and then he muses and says, what happened to all those dinner parties we used to go to? And I'm like, oh, bless. He hadn't figured it out. I actually replied, yep, they're still having those. They're inviting their other coupled up married friends and all the parents of their children's friends. And we weren't on the invite list anymore. And I can also tell you that being a perpetually single woman, there is a vast part of the social network that you're excluded from. And it kind of sucks. Not that I'm bitter at all. Well, I used to be. I'm kind of not anymore. And all the single men that Bridget does know are now kind of wanting to hook up with 24-year-olds. And I noticed that as well when I was doing some internet dating when I was 32 and then went back at it when I was 40. And it was the same group of guys still looking for 24-year-olds. And I'm like, seriously, what is wrong with you? Why do you think you're remotely attractive to a 24-year-old? I don't get it. I don't understand why men feel they've got to hook up with younger women all the time. And Bridget writes in her diary, have now reached the age where men of my age no longer find their contemporaries attractive. And I do wonder when that situation is going to reverse. Now, since I'm rereading my library, trying to make that decision as to which books I'm going to keep and which ones I'm going to let go, I have decided that this one's a keeper. It's a wonderful memory of my 30s and how being perpetually single isn't actually that bad a thing after all. Some weeks the written version can say a whole lot more than I can possibly put in the video, and this is definitely one of them. I have a whole bunch of more stories that are sitting there in the written review. You can subscribe and read the full review on Substack for free, and then you'll be able to get all the other stories sent directly into your email. The link is in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.